Welcome back. I'm intending to do the previews and get all the NHL previews done by Christmas Eve, so that from Christmas Day forward, I'm focusing on the World Juniors and I'm focusing on the upcoming NHL season from a point of view of news of the day. We'll be seeing training camps January 3rd for the 7 teams that missed the play-in round, including these guys, Anaheim. We will see their training camp starting on New Year's Eve. So I want to make sure I get all the previews done before that. I understand there's going to be free agent signings and whatnot in between now and then, but that's part of the reason why it's good that I'm not doing the depth charts, because that's always where things happen. That I'll have all the depth charts for a preview, and then people will be like, "Oh, this depth chart now doesn't work, so you have to redo the whole preview." It's like, I'm not redoing the whole preview because I picked up one player. And I don't see Anaheim being a team that's really actively picking up players. Now, yes, I'm wearing the Wild Wing jersey. I'm sure that as soon as I got this, there were those who would say, okay, well, he's going to do the Anaheim preview because Wild Wing. And the hat really sets the whole look off, right? That just makes it look just fantastic. And as startlingly ugly as the jersey may be, and it is, and I've got the logo on the board because I thought, well, if I'm going to wear the Mighty Ducks theme here, I might as well have the Mighty Ducks logo up here. This was the secondary, of course. I might as well, just go all in because the team's probably going to have a bit of a rough season. I'm a little more optimistic, though, than others. I'm going to say that. So their last 3 seasons, 101 points, 2017, 2018, and then they fell off the cliff in 2018, 2019. End up with 80 points. Prorated over a full 82 games this year, they had 77. I think they were better than they were given credit for. And so when you look at what they lost in the offseason, they lose Goodbranson. They trade his contract out, of course. Del Zotto and Miller. Ryan Miller, of course, becomes a UFA. I can't see him playing anywhere else. His wife being an actress, he wanted to be in LA / Anaheim because he wanted to be close to where her work is, and so I can't see him signing anywhere else. Like Washington loses Lundqvist, I can't see him saying, okay, well, I'll go to Washington. I can't see it. So Miller probably ends up retiring in all likelihood, and it does kind of open up an opportunity on this team. There may be a reason why they were willing to lose Miller, and we'll get to that. The Hockey News, on their power rankings, they have the Ducks at 30th out of 31 teams. So, not optimistic. The forecaster has them 7th in the Pacific Division. I have them 6th in the division. So, it's not a fantastic division. Let's be honest. The Pacific Division is the weakest of the 4 divisions. It is the division where we could see a surprising team in the top 4. We could see a team that really probably wouldn't be in the mix, absolutely in the mix down the stretch, because they're in that division, and it could end up being Anaheim. Now, in the favor of those divisions too, because the division only plays within itself, the record isn't going to be too bad. Whoever ends up 4th in that division is going to have a decent record because you don't play games outside of your division. And I know there's still some confusion about that. Yeah, you only play teams in your division this season. That's it. 56 games, all within your own division. So in divisions where it's 8 teams, you're going to play the other 7 teams 8 times. If we get a Canadian division where it's 7 teams, we're going to get an odd number there. But because you're playing against 6 teams, and 6 doesn't go into 56 evenly. But it's going to be interesting. And so for the Ducks, they only have to worry about the other 7 teams, and I think that kind of changes the dynamic just a little bit. Too low in terms of scoring last year. I could have the whole Ducks forward group and some of their defensemen on this list. I went with 3. I tried to keep it to 3. And I went with Heinen, who had a rough season with Boston before going to Anaheim. I really think Heinen's going to be a spark plug for them. 67 games, 10 goals, 16 assists, 26 points. At times I thought Heinen was overrated in his time in Boston, at times under, and I feel like in the trade for Nick Ritchie, I think Anaheim wins that trade. I do. Sam Steele, 65 games, 6 goals, 16 assists, 22 points. He has to score more than that. So does Jones. Jones and Steele are kind of tied to one another that way, and I think if you can get those two to get chemistry together and have some kind of scoring happening between the two of them, and I'm not sure when that takes place, maybe it's this year, but Steele's kind of seen as like the ace in the hole. This guy will get it done. And then Manson. Manson in 50 games, 1 goal, 8 assists, 9 points. Had trouble with injuries. I didn't think he looked as sharp last year as the year before. If he has another rough year, and I know people don't like it when I say it, I said it when I was doing the Seattle expansion videos, I could see him, if he has another down year, being the guy who ends up going to Seattle. And then I'm saying, yeah, that contract, he hasn't played up to it for 2 years. But again, that's an if and a projection and a maybe, right? So Manson, I do think bounces back at least to score more than the 9 points in 50 games. That pace is too low for him, although he's not an offensive defenseman mostly. The rookie to watch is Trevor Zegras. And all reports would indicate that Zegras is solid. He is that number one center they're needing, and he's going to step in pretty darn quick here and likely be a very entertaining watch. He may be one of those low-key, not really talked about Calder eligible players who may end up generating more buzz than we think, because this is a team that needs goals, and if Zegras comes in and can generate goals either through helpers or through shooting it himself. Last year they scored 2.56 goals per game, which was 29th. That is not good enough. Goals against 3.17 per game, which was 25th. Now I want to throw in they were undefeated when I watched them live. In January, before the world closed down, we watched Anaheim against Arizona. Also worthy of note, it was the second time I had seen Arizona in a couple of weeks. I watched Arizona and Vancouver. Arizona lost both games. I apologize to Coyotes fans now, because I know they were upset with me then. That I had no control over what happened on the ice. Although I will take full credit for Anaheim being undefeated when I've watched them at home. They're undefeated when I've been in attendance. It's pretty cool. I don't see what the problem is. They were undefeated when I was there. But power play, they were 14.67% on the power play, which is 30th in the NHL. So that's a problem. They couldn't score, and their power play was a big part of it. This is a team that has a Ryan Getzlaf who is not on this board. Ryan Getzlaf is in the phase of his career where it needs to be, his ice time needs to be drawn down. You need to look to the future. You need to really give those kids a chance to excel. And I would think that happens this year. Penalty kill, 77%, which was 26th in the NHL. So their special teams, their offense, their defense, you name it, Anaheim needs to fix it. Now, big additions, there's asterisks next to 2 guys. So first off, Derek Grant. Technically a UFA addition, also great Anaheim Duck. Went to Philadelphia. His play wasn't as good in Philadelphia as it was in Anaheim, so he re-signs in Anaheim. This guy knows where he plays his best hockey. I am always very appreciative of players who, as free agents, say, I'm going there because I know I play my best game. So it may not be the place where you get the most money, but you know that's where you play your best game. Sonny Milano, asterisk, because he was added at the deadline, but it feels like you just get a glimpse from him in the games that he played after the deadline. So it feels like he's a new player, even if he's not. And I think Sonny Milano is going to have a bounce back with Anaheim as well. There's just too many players here who are due to score more for me to believe that next season's going to be as bad as the season before it. I'm not saying playoffs. Notice it's 6th in the division. I'm not saying playoffs, but I don't think they're as far away as other people may think. And then Shattenkirk. Shattenkirk is a decent addition for them on the blue line. I think that was a good pickup for a team that did need depth on the blue line. So you lose Goodbranson, you lose Del Zotto, and you add Shattenkirk, and I think that's a plus. Goodbranson played well in Anaheim, but Shattenkirk is the better defenseman of the two. So when we look at the core 6, and again, this is about young players. This is about young guys who are going to, be that team you build around. I've got Jones, I've got Steele, and I've got Zegras up front. I still believe in Max Jones. I'm not sure why, to be honest. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, I believe Jones and Steele are going to be top 6 forwards. And yet, when I watched the Ducks play, I was frustrated by the play of both. Steele gave, I thought, more glimpses of what was to come and of a better player than Jones did. Again, that's purely speculative on my part and totally subjective, which is how I like hockey analysis. I think it's more fun when it's this subjective than it's a big chart and you just go, here's the reality. No thanks. And Zegras, of course, coming in, as I mentioned with Rookie to Watch, is the big move for Anaheim this year and could potentially help them out a lot. On the blue line, their core six, Lindholm, who's 26. Fowler's 29, so he's a little bit older than what I usually put in the core six. And so I got Drysdale there in ellipses because Jamie Drysdale, draft pick, I like him a lot. And I think that the Ducks fans will like him too. And if Drysdale pushes his way into the lineup, I'll say next year. I'll just say next year, 2021, 2022. This is a Ducks team that could get good quickly. Keep in mind, they still have John Gibson in net. And Gibson's standing may have taken a bit of a hit for some in fantasy land. And I understand, if you're in fantasy hockey, Gibson won't likely get you a lot of wins. His numbers may end up not being very good. But it's not him. It's the team in front of him that hasn't been very good. I thought Gibson was excellent. Gibson was a big part of the reason they got off to a really good start this past year. And then it just wore down as the year went along. You end up feeling really bad for Gibson. So coach for this team is Dallas Eakins, who, and I've heard it said both Eakins and Akins. For Dallas, I think he's the right coach for this team. I think he's the right coach for this team. General manager Bob Murray, I thought, held on to Randy Carlyle too long. But since the firing of Randy Carlyle actually happened, I think he's done a decent job in recognizing, okay, we're going to have to do a rebuild. He didn't end up keeping Corey Perry. There's been no stopgaps where they've brought in veterans to try to prop things up. He seems to have accepted this team needs to go through what it's going through right now. And so I think Bob Murray's done a decent enough job. When you go into the rebuild, you go from a 100-point every year team to that drop. It can be tough. And for him to keep his job through this has been impressive. Glass half full. The good news is this is a team that's going to have some young stars. And there's more young stars on the way. It's a team that's going to go from being older and slower a couple years ago to just being young, fast, exciting to watch. There's still going to be those mistakes. So if you're glass half empty with the glass half full at the same time, you know, yeah, it's young stars and they're going to screw up. Absolutely they will. And Gibson in net means that you'll have somebody to cover for some of those screw-ups who's pretty darn good at that whole goaltending thing. Gibson might be one of the most underrated goaltenders in the league. Just night in and night out, he's very, very good. His numbers eventually suffered. I think that, you know, Ryan Miller gave them a good backup, and how the backup position develops this year may very well decide whether they end up being sixth where I have them, or the Hockey News is right and they end up being 30th overall. So, glass half empty, of course, is the fact they're still rebuilding. So, but again, is that really a half empty or just realistic? Probably just realistic. Next big hype, I went with Lucas Dostal, goaltender, who's put up intimidating numbers in the European League, and in a European League, right? And now coming over to play and may end up being the backup. I know Stolarz is being given the spot in the annuals I've been reading, the yearbooks I've been reading, but I think Dostal will push him because Stolarz has been mostly an AHL goaltender for the last few years. I would not be surprised if this kid comes in and pushes him out. And then if he earns his share of starts, because we're going to have a more condensed schedule, his stock could rise quickly, and then that gives Bob Murray maybe some options in net, right? Having a good young goaltender is only a good thing, and it would be something that would ease his mind, and then you don't really have to worry about it. So either you can look at it and go, well, with Dostal and Gibson, we're fine. We don't need another goaltender for the next 5 years, or you could look and say, all right, well, Dostal's got a pretty good overall standing right now. Maybe we can move him for this or that kind of thing. But yeah, I think he'll get some hype at some point, but he's gonna have to wait behind Zegras, who's coming in, and Drysdale, because they rightfully have a ton. The team's record month over month, in October they were 8-6, in November they were 3-6-4, in December 5-7-1. So they fell off the cliff quickly after October. And I remember doing power rankings in October and going, I don't know what's going on with Anaheim, but they're good, so they're higher up on the power ranking. I'm not sure why. January, they were 4-7. February, 6-4-3. So things got better for them in February. And then in March, they were a respectable 3-3-1. Remember, they'd gone through basically a sell-off. This was a team that didn't have a lot to play for, and yet they were 9-7-4 in the last 2 months of the season. So it's a respectable record. You do want more than 9 wins out of 20 games, but again, with the season they had, it's respectable. Now, against teams in their projected division, and remember, you don't play outside your division. 2-1-1 against Arizona, 2-1 against Colorado, 2-1 against LA, 1-2 against St. Louis, 1-2 against San Jose, 1-1 against Minnesota, and 1-2 against the Vegas Golden Knights. So 10-10-3 altogether against teams in their projected division. And remember, you do not play outside your division. Every team this year will just play within their own division. Very key in all this. It doesn't matter how they play against Florida or how they play against any of the Canadian teams or Boston, because they don't play any of them. They're only going to play these 7 teams. And so I could see Anaheim ending up ahead of San Jose. I could see them ahead of Arizona. Those are the 2 teams I have them ahead of in the division. I could see them challenging the Kings for 5th. And then there's Minnesota, who probably ends up 4th, but who knows? So I think it's going to be tough, and I think Anaheim could be a very, very interesting team to watch this year. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.